You are very welcome to the introduction section of the software. Marmoset, what is going to happen in this episode? Let's get to know more about Marmoset software with its key parts. Let's get acquainted. Let's actually prepare a scene, do lighting, talk a little bit about lighting issues, get information, and put up cameras and prepare our work for rendering. There is a point. In every part that we are actually training, there are a series of new points of Marmoset. Let's learn. So in this section, only and only, we will learn the parts that are ahead of the door. The project that we are going to do, as an exercise for the introductory section. May it be useful to us and be useful to us. The first issue is how do we import the model into the Marmoset software at all? There are two very simple ways. In this list that is here, you can right-click and click on the import option, the model. Or you can use a much simpler method and just click and drag the model and in this viewport in space, let go. It's as simple as that. Well, I imported the model, but a series of things have happened in the middle. Let's go and check it again. First of all, it is as if we are only seeing one side of the model and from the inside. Not scene modal. In order to solve this problem, we must choose the model. And after we have selected in the mesh settings, let's come here and call back face. We should turn it off. This is how our thin models that are not thick, correctly in the viewport, are displayed. How can we navigate in viewport? Viewport is very important to us. The viewport is where we can actually control our camera, control our light. Stage layout, let's do it. And the rest of what I want to tell you can be set up in the viewport. The first step is how to navigate in our viewport. Navigation in the software very easily. We just hold the Alt button. If we hit the left button, we can orbit. If we hit the right button, we can zoom in and zoom out with mouse movement. Let's control. If we hold the button in the middle of the mouse with the Alt, as you can see the pen. Let's do it. These are three of the most basic things that can happen in viewport. It is unbearable. We can also zoom and step by scrolling. Doable. Well, now that we can viewport, control and move. The thing that comes up here is, so these changes and this is exactly what I'm seeing. What does it have to do with it? To my final render, just to my viewport, or A. There is no point of view of the scene or anything. We can do this by checking this option in this part. In fact, let's make sure of it. Whether the changes I'm making to camera or on, for example, just my viewport, or the changes in angles that I'm adjusting in the viewport have to do with the light that I have on the scene, because that's exactly what we can do in Marmoset. So in this part we can. Let's connect what is happening in the viewport to one of the assets that we have. Now the camera, or empty viewport, or light. If we click on it, we can see it here. A series of views from before. There are definitions here, such as perspective, top, bottom, left, right, which we use a lot. We can form camera and camera list. Let's make our choice with these. Or if we have a light in the scene, we can use it here. List of lights. Choose a light that you want to go to. I will pay. Our viewport. What happens to it is that we can define that our viewport is equal to the render that we are going to get in the end. Draft mode means it's a preview. For example, we want to show the wireframe, or, for example, let's only see ourselves in the viewport, for example, the color channel or the Rathens. This topic can be view mode in from this list. Controllable, I can tap this on quality draft mode. I can tap on wireframe mode. Or I can use one of my render paths. Bring it here and actually, I'm going to check it out and say, well, I want this pass, or not, which I'm going to deal with. I put it on full quality. The point is that by default, when you open the Marmoset software, ray tracing feature is not active for that. What is the property of ray tracing? A type of light processing that gives us accurate shadow and precise processing of light. In fact, it gives. Now, how can we activate this issue? Just let's come in. Render menu. Use ray tracing or use short key, Control R. Use. When we click on this option, we can see the shadows better in the work. And if you pay attention, if I view mode from full quality to draft mode, it eliminates shadows, that is, passive racing rate processing. Where does this help? On systems that are a little weak or other software is open at the same time. It can help us a lot. Reduce our software processing load so that our hardware can be smoother. Software. Perform. I'm putting this on full quality mode now. I'm on the main camera. And we're going to talk about multiple viewport capabilities within Marmoset. It's been a long time since you need to be on the top view here. For example, on the other viewport, on perspective view. In the third viewport, for example, on camera 1 or 2 or 3 or main cameras which exist by default. Get in. For this, you have to come and divide your viewport. How do we do this? I'm coming here. We will take this option and it will be done in 2 ways, vertically and horizontally. We can. Let's divide our viewport. So I'm coming here. This is how I divide my viewport. So how does this viewport division help me? It helps me to put this on perspective mode here, for example. And on draft mode here, too, it helps me to put this, for example, in the view top. And on draft mode. And what happens is these viewports, they are no longer physically dependent. I can come here and set up my main camera. And at the same time, I can be free. Circle around this avatar that I entered or the model that I entered and make the changes I want on the scene. Apply. Here are the changes we can make to viewport. A maximum viewport will help us temporarily enlarge one of the viewports we need right now. Let's do the work, adjust the settings. In fact, we can implement it, and then we can go back to the way we were before. There is a time when you have 2 monitors, 3 monitors, and you want to take one of these ports independently, another monitor, and use it. This option can help you get a power viewport gives you, and you can go anywhere if you want. Take it and get use of it. Again, if you hit this option, I'll get a duplicate. Okay, I'll close this for now. The remover option that we have reviewed together, if we come here and hit the remover option, this viewport in general, they close. This was the part that we should have known about in viewport ahead of time. When we want to get to the point where we want to move forward, we need more viewports. We are talking. There are only 2 options that are very important. And you should definitely talk about it in the viewport. Have information. The first is when you have a graphics card that supports DLSS NVIDIA. For example, NVIDIA Series 20 and above. And this option will help you to have a clearer viewport, especially if you have multiple viewports at the same time. Open it and you want to use it. I'm going to get into this gear and option. Hit the upscaling mode option on auto mode. Auto NVIDIA DLSS. So what does this do if you pay attention to me when I move? And my viewport. Now, I'm going to make changes to it, whether it's the lighting, the actual camera placement, or anything else. What happens? That's it. Coming to my viewport temporarily. It renders the render and the image in it in a very small size, and with artificial intelligence, it makes it bigger. And after my movement or those changes are stopped, starts to process light and ray tracing according to the size of the defined. And it helps a lot because it's the process of denoise, and it's the process of ray tracing with each change. It not happened to you from the beginning. And the next option that can be very useful for us Option. Show guide. The show guide does what it does. For example, you add a light. And in your viewport, you have this light here. You can see if I turn on this show guide option, you can see the icon. Well, seeing this light icon in perspective helps us a lot because it is something that makes us able to see the light better and easier to control. But in the angle that, for example, is in the main camera, this passage can be an option that hurts us visually, especially when we're controlling the light. So this option, if we turn off the show guide in the viewport that is related to the camera and our final render, it helps us a lot because the image, cleaner and no special disturbances. We should have This is from the viewport section of all the things we needed to know before we started. I've told you about the viewport here. Let's go to the other two windows, the material and the scene, and talk about it there and move the work forward. The next window we want to talk about. The window is a material. It's a very important window and we have a lot of work to do. And the further we go, the more information we will be cast into this camp that we have together. This is just a point of familiarity for us with this window. To know what is happening in it at all. What comes and what goes, and what can we do in this? The first part that you want to talk about is the material management part itself, which happens in this upper part. You can create new material from this part. You can take the material you chose and duplicate it or copy it. Delete it. And you can come from the presets that are here and use. For example, if you want to make materials like glass, you can use preset. Use here exactly. That's what we're going to do. It means that we come to the preset section and select the close option and use this preset. For our fabric materials, we come and use. The next thing you know, there are two options for importing and exporting, where you can build a material into a Marmoset project, export it, and inside another project, import it, and you can easily transfer your material between different projects. Transfer it. Now let's go to the most important thing that we are going to come to in this window and use it. This is applying that material to a model or attributing that material to a part of a model. There are two ways. The first is that you take a click and understand and take that material from here and hit it on your model, like I'm doing here right now. The next method is that very method. I can say that it is more useful, especially if your project becomes heavy to experience this issue together. We will have. It's to choose the model first. It's easy to click on the model we want. Material method to be applied, or we do it from this list. And then we will come here and right-click and apply. Either we will apply from there or from this option that is available here. And we can very easily make our material in this way. No matter how heavy the project is, the possibility of crashing the software in this way, much less. So this is the material part. Now, the other thing that we can actually do here is to choose a material. And then let's look at the part at the bottom of this material window. Control our material. From what point of view? What are the inputs of this material? We can first of all import our textures into Marmoset and attribute them to a material. Exactly from this window. And on the other hand, now that we've brought in the inputs, let's make some methodological changes. For example, now in fact, I have albedo texture, imported texture. And what am I going to do here? Common one, I want to add a color tint. Now the color of this, my material is white, my texture is white. I'm going to put on the color here and choose the color red for it. It's as easy as that, so I can see what's going on in the material. I can also set a number of values such as, for example, color in the discussion of albedo or the extent of the influence of texture on roughness and metallic. Let's do some controls. Let's do it. In the discussion of tiling texture, we are also in this. We can come and do these things. Implement. Each of these passages that you see here is also dark gray, and if we want to use it, we will use it in the material we have chosen. Let's just click on this slider and choose our type of input here. We can just as easily Marmoset software. We should make materials. For now, it's going to be here when we want to start working. And in fact, we wanted to come to Marmoset with our material that we made. Let's come and what do we do about this section? Let's get more information. Well, let's talk about the scene management part. The window is very important. That helps us to be able to, in fact, our own scene and what is going to be rendered. We must control. In what way? Your render setting is here. Your camera settings are here. Lighting settings are here. It's here. And after you have the settings here, you can do those things. Control the viewport. From here, you can see how much the viewport and scene management are related to each other. And the importance of these two windows get noticed. So let's give you a very brief explanation ahead of time when we want to actually set up our project and start our work. Let's get more information. The first point is that you choose whatever you want in the viewport. Without material discussion. Settings in this section. It comes and goes, for example, a light, a model, a camera, or anything else that is here in the viewport. There is no other. Material. I've chosen my modal now. The mesh in question is related to, in fact, this fabric that has been applied to the red material method. In this, you have selected the list, and for me, it has made some setting here. The most important settings that exist here, and we have a lot to do with it, is this callback face that we talked about how much of an impact. It is important for us. The second is the subdivision, which helps us to have a softer model when we want to make an important material on an important model. We should apply it. Now, in terms of possible displacement, our camera is close up, or detail. We have a lot of material. Then the subdivision switch is kind of like a mesh smooth or a turb smooth on modeling software. It works and practically reduces the number of our vortexes. It makes it even more. We can find this option from mesh info part. Quite. Let's find out before subdivision. We have something about 53,000. We had vortex. From subdivision, the same 53 million. Convert to 210,000. The same mode of turbo smooth and mesh smooth in modeling software. The point is that in this mode, we have 3 different modes. 99% of our projects are in the same state as Catmull Clark. It works and you don't have to mode. Let's change. That was all that was needed in the mesh section. We should have Now, each of these models that you choose in the scene will come to you with a gizmo, and we know what it does. Rotation, scale, and move tells us the subject in a 3D space. There is a very important point here, and it is worth mentioning. It's possible that when we import a topic into the Marmoset software, like this model, which I brought, it consists of 2 general parts. That is, it has a model called base. He has a model called avatar 01. Well, sometimes I want to do both. Let's get together and get scale, move, and rotate. There is a time when I say no, I just want avatar 01. Move or rotate. For this reason, it is very important that we choose which of these options we choose here. If we select the subsets of this collection that are here, we can do it separately. Move, rotate, and let's get to the scale and define in a way that has nothing to do with that one object at all. Good. But if we come to choose the collection itself, which has a white icon, if we come to scale, Whether we move or do a routine, it will happen to both members of that group. And so this relationship that exists here is a very important one, and then we'll talk about it when we're going to do lighting or special animations that we want to create in Marmoset. The relationship that exists here means that there is a lot of relationship to this set and subset. It's important. Besides that, we have now learned how to adjust, move, rotate, scale if we want to choose a topic in the viewport. Let's go to the render setting. Let me tell you a whole of the rendering setting. And then we move on to the next video. In the next video, we're going to show you these two samples. In fact, we put it into the Marmoset. Let's do the framing. And we're going to get ready to output ahead of time when we've made the textures in the designer, and we're going to do our work in Marmoset. Let's move forward. In render setting, the first option we should always activate is option ray tracing. And then Marmoset that we need to install on the system, Marmoset 4.06. If you install this Marmoset, both your camera settings and your rendering settings will be the same as the tutorials, so be sure to check that your version is 4.06. Well, when I come here, we select the render setting option. In the lighting section, activate the ray tracing section of the usage ray tracing option. Advanced light sampling active selection. And here's the bounce between 1 and 5. We choose that the number 3 is usually a number that gives us much more realistic results. If we put the number 1 on the number 1, our shadows are more likely. And it's getting darker. If we put on 5, our shadows will be from the state of. Actually, it's on the number 1. It's going to be a little brighter, and out of that thickness and blackness comes out. We don't have any special work in the lighting section anymore. We close this section and see it in the output section. In the output section, I'm done. I focus on the image section. Everything I'm going to tell you here later in the video, it just applies to this video menu. I see that in the image section, we can define the rendering path, define its resolution, define its format, the amount of sample that actually makes our render with or without noise. And finally, we can see the amount of denoise here. Define. I'll talk about this later. We don't have. In the camera render part, one of the most important things happens. I have 5 cameras in my project, but I just want to render 3 of them, or one of those 5 changes. The settings have been applied in such a way that only render number 5 or camera number 5 have to be taken again, where we can make a camera list, and from here to control it. This is from the rendering settings. You see, very simply, very quickly, we can implement the settings related to the Marmoset rendering section. So far, that's enough. Let's go to the next video. I want to talk a little bit more about the lights. And then we go to the designer. Texture creation. Finally, rendering inside the software. Marmoset.